Retirement used to be the ultimate finish line. Now, for a lot of people in their 50s, it's become a source of low-level panic. And honestly, that fear is coming from a very real place. You've been paying into the system your entire working life, and now you're in the home stretch. But you're also left wondering, is the rug going to get pulled right out from underneath you? You see, the biggest problem isn't the system itself. The biggest problem is that most people have no idea what's actually happening beneath the surface or what the math means for their future checks. What checks do I mean? Your Social Security checks. So that's exactly what we're doing today. We're going to pull back the curtain on Social Security. We're going to show you exactly where Social Security stands today, and we're going to separate what's real from what's just noise. Let's dive into it. Now, as of this week, the Social Security trustees released their latest report. And once again, the conversation is back in the headlines. You've probably seen some version of the headline already. Social Security is running out of money. Benefits could be cut. The trust fund is running dry. Now, here's the thing. Most people hear those headlines and immediately jump to one of two conclusions. Either they think Social Security is about to disappear, or they think somebody will just figure it out. But what if the real story is neither of those? What if the bigger question isn't whether Social Security survives, but how it changes? Because folks, Social Security isn't some small government program. It's one of the largest retirement systems in the world. Millions of Americans depend on it. Millions more are paying into it every paycheck. And according to the latest projections, the system is facing a growing funding gap. Now, before I get into that doesn't mean checks suddenly stop. It doesn't mean the program disappears, but it does mean something eventually has to give. So today we're going to break down what the trustees actually said, how we got here, what options policymakers may consider, and the four numbers that explain almost everything happening beneath the surface. And trust me, those four numbers tell a very different story than most of the headlines. Today we're going to answer four simple questions. First, what is actually happening inside Social Security right now? Second, how did America get here? Third, what realistic solutions are being discussed? And finally, what is the one thing most people completely miss when they talk about Social Security? Because once you understand that final piece, the entire debate starts to look different. So let's slow this down. Most people think Social Security operates like a giant retirement account. You put money in, the government invests it, and eventually you get your money back. But that's not really how the system works. Social Security was designed primarily as a pay-as-you-go program. In simple terms, workers pay payroll taxes today. Those taxes help fund benefits for today's retirees. Think of it like a giant bucket. Workers pour water into the bucket. Retirees take water out. As long as enough water comes in, the system works. The challenge begins when more water starts leaving than entering. And that's exactly what has been happening. Now, here's the number worth paying attention to. For decades, America had a large workforce supporting a relatively small retiree population. In 1960, there were more than 5 workers supporting each Social Security beneficiary. Today, that number is closer to 3. And over the coming decades, it is projected to move even lower. Think about that for a second. Imagine running a business where 5 employees used to cover the costs of 1 retiree. Now, only 3 employees are covering that same obligation, and eventually maybe just a little more than 2. The math starts to change. That's why the trustees continue to project long-term funding challenges. Not because Social Security suddenly stopped working, but because the population supporting the system looks very different than it once did. The trust funds help absorb some of that pressure. But the latest trustees report shows those reserves continuing to shrink over time. And that's why the discussion is becoming more urgent. Not because benefits vanish overnight, but because policymakers eventually have to decide how to close the gap between incoming revenue and promised benefits. And that brings us to the next question. How did we get here? History doesn't repeat perfectly, but it often rhymes. Social Security was created in 1935. At the time, America looked very different. Life expectancy was lower. families were larger, the workforce was growing rapidly, and relatively few people spent decades in retirement. The system was designed around those realities. Then something changed. Actually, several things changed. Americans began living longer. The baby boom generation created a temporary surge in workers. Women entered the workforce in large numbers. Every single day, your money is losing ground. Inflation is eating your savings. Debt is draining your income. And the financial system? It was never designed to work for you. But there is a way out, and the wealthy have known about it for decades. I'm hosting a free live training where I'll show you exactly how to eliminate debt like the wealthy do, how to preserve and protect your capital from the forces working against it, and how to build a clear step-by-step path toward true financial freedom. No gimmicks, no fluff, just a proven system that puts you back in control of your financial future. Seating is limited and it is completely free, but you need to act now. Click the link below or scan the QR code to reserve your spot today. The wealthy don't wait, neither should you. Now let's get back into the video. And over time, birth rates gradually declined. For decades, those forces balanced each other out. But eventually, the demographics began shifting. By the 1970s and early 1980s, Social Security faced significant financial challenges. Sound familiar? Congress responded with reforms. Payroll taxes were adjusted, benefits were modified, and perhaps most importantly, the full retirement age was gradually increased. In other words, America has faced Social Security funding concerns before, and America made changes before. That's important because many people assume today's challenge is unprecedented. It isn't. The specific details are different, but the broader issue has appeared before. The lesson from history isn't that the system can't be fixed. The lesson is that major adjustments have historically required difficult decisions. And that brings us to the debate happening right now. So what could happen next? Nobody knows exactly. And to be clear, these are not predictions. These are simply some of the major options economists, analysts, and policymakers frequently discuss. Let's start with scenario A, revenue first. Under this approach, the goal is simple. Bring more money into the system. One option would be increasing payroll taxes. Even a relatively small increase generates significant revenue because so many Americans participate in the program. Another option involves adjusting or removing the wage cap. Today, Social Security taxes only apply up to a certain income threshold. Some proposals would raise that threshold, others would remove it entirely. The advantage? More revenue. The challenge? Someone has to pay more. Now let's look at scenario B, benefit first. Instead of increasing revenue, this approach focuses on reducing future obligations. The most commonly discussed option is raising the retirement age. Supporters argue Americans are living longer than when Social Security was created. Critics argue not everyone benefits equally from those longevity gains. Another frequently discussed proposal is means testing. Under that approach, higher income retirees could receive reduced benefits compared to lower income retirees. Again, there are trade-offs. Every solution creates winners and losers. But here's where history becomes interesting. Scenario C, the historical compromise. When America addressed Social Security challenges in the past, the solution wasn't usually one giant change. It was several smaller changes. A little more revenue, a little less spending growth, gradual adjustments spread across multiple groups. Nobody got everything they wanted, but everyone shared part of the burden. And many analysts believe that if future reforms occur, they could resemble that approach more than any single dramatic solution. Because sometimes the most politically realistic answer isn't one big fix. It's a collection of smaller ones. Here's what most people missed. The real story may not be the trust fund at all. The real story may be demographics. Let me show you what I mean. There are 4 numbers that explain most of the Social Security challenge. Number 1, fertility. During the baby boom era, fertility rates were dramatically higher than they are today. Recent birth rates remain well below replacement levels. That means fewer future workers entering the system. Number 2, labor force participation. At its peak, labor force participation climbed above 67%. Today, it's closer to 62%. Remember, Social Security depends on workers paying payroll taxes. Participation matters. Number 3, workers per beneficiary. We already discussed this one. More than 5 workers per beneficiary in 1960, closer to 3 today, projected lower in the future. And number 4, life expectancy. Americans are living longer than previous generations. That is a wonderful thing, but it also means more years receiving benefits. Now think about what happens when all 4 trends occur at the same time. Fewer births, fewer workers supporting each retiree, longer retirements, and lower workforce participation than peak levels. Folks, that's not primarily a financial story, that's a demographic story, and demographics are incredibly difficult to change quickly. That's why the 2026 Trustees Report is so important. One of the biggest changes wasn't just the funding outlook. It was the recognition that demographic trends may remain weaker for longer than previously expected. What's your take on all of this? I'd genuinely be interested to hear your perspective, so down in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. And if you found this episode helpful, make sure you like this video and also subscribe to this channel. Every single week, we break down current economic events, market trends, and historical patterns to help you make more informed financial decisions during uncertain times. Thanks again for joining me on this episode of Straight Talk. And with that being said, I'll see you next week.